Uh, so, Rudraneil, I'll begin with you. And I think the best thing would be for you to first tell everybody what your book is about, briefly, and
Okay.
how you came to write it, what inspired it.
Okay. Sure. Thank you so much, Madhulika. Thank you everybody for coming here. Um, so what the book is about, I'm trying not to give things away, but basically it's a crime. It's a unit of the crime branch of Delhi Police, which is led by an inspector called Prashant Kumar, and his team of officers, six of them, who the book begins with a gangland shootout, and he bags a major gangster of Delhi, and then after that he's transferred to a different district, and in that district there is a very small crime which everybody thinks is not even a crime. A girl has fallen to her death from the terrace of a house, and most people think it's just suicide, but there's something about it that feels odd to Inspector Kumar, and so he starts investigating and he doesn't stop, and that's what the book is about. For the rest, you have to read it. Um, yes, so
Inspiration.
inspiration. Okay, so that's a very difficult question to answer because I have always wanted to write crime fiction from a very young age. I'm a fan of. I grew up in Kolkata, so I'm a big fan of Feluda and Sherlock Holmes and Byomkesh Bakshi and all those detectives, and I've always wanted to write one. I never really knew how to go about it till I actually started as a journalist, reporting on crime and Delhi police. And once I started doing that, and I started meeting all the cops and all the people there, and watching them at work and observing how things unfold, how a crime is investigated, that's when I realized, okay, now I have material to work with. Now I actually know how this works. And then I got down to it. I just started planning a story.
Okay. So given that and in fact, I remember reading at the back of, where the blurb of the book is that you were embedded in Delhi Police when
Yes.
you were doing this investigative journalism, and that sort of it made me think that, okay, so is there stuff in this which is pure factual, and what is fictional, what is factual?
Yeah. Um, well, a lot of it is factual, but it's all fictionalized, which means basically, okay, I've taken something that I've actually seen or actually recorded. I obsessively took notes, just like a journalist does throughout all my research. Um, and what I did with that was I took notes, and there was, with real events, I put them out of context. I took one real event and I put it in a place where it doesn't belong. And so a lot of the events are real, but they happen in a way that is completely fictional. So yeah, so that's the kind of balance I was trying to. But I wanted to capture the way people speak, the way the investigations happen, the procedure behind it. I was very careful and I tried to make that as real as possible. Um, at some point, it can even feel boring because a lot of police work, as she knows, is can be so you have to be so diligent. You have to look at thousands of hours of CCTV footage and go through records and paperwork and all of that and court appearances, and then you have sudden bursts of action. And I also tried to kind of capture that in the book as much as possible in something in which is fictional, where you have to also keep things moving.
I
Yeah.
think you managed to capture that very well. In fact, I was reading the postmortem report,
Yes.
and I thought to myself, I said, I've never come across any other writer who's actually written such a very scientific postmortem report. In fact, I was telling my father about this. My father used to be in the IPS,
Okay.
and I was telling him, I said, look at this is how it's written. And he was like, yes, yes, that is exactly how it's written. So he was very impressed.
Thank you. So, for example, the postmortem report is almost not my writing at all. It's actually an actual doctor who I met and who's very close to me and who does postmortems. And so I presented him with the scenario. I told him, this is how the girl has died. This is what happened to her. This is how the body was found. Now, what will you find in the postmortem when you do it? Can you write me a report? So he wrote the report for me.
Wow.
So
No, no, but,
and I'm like, I
just
shouldn't touch it because
but that
that's
is what the hard work which goes on behind the scenes is all
yes.
about. So anyway, also, given that this is your first novel, right? You're not used to writing fiction, I assume.
Yes.
How difficult was it to actually write fiction? You know, I mean, did you have to struggle with, say, dialogue or characterization, stuff like that?
Where everything was a struggle, but also I have to say that having written a non-fiction book before, this for me was much more fun. Because in non-fiction, of course, you have to be very, very diligent. You have to know exactly what you're saying. Everything has to be quoted right. Every fact has to be right. And if I'm stuck, say, writing non-fiction, I can't like just look for inspiration in my imagination, which I can do here, right? So every time I'm stuck, I'm like, okay, let me kill this person, or let me just. So I felt like really it was a lot of fun doing that, playing God with my characters, and so yeah, it was more fun doing this. And as far as dialogue writing is concerned, again, I did obsessive note taking. I recorded conversations all the time with the consent of the police people, for the officers sitting here.
You have to
I
be very
told them that, okay,
careful.
I am not going to use this in my journalism, but I'm just going to record your conversations because I am planning to write a book. So if you are okay with that, if you trust me, let me record everything that you're saying. And so I have hours of transcripts of people talking, and I used a lot of those, again, completely out of context, so there's no way to, you know, nothing comes back to anybody, but those are real conversations, a lot of them.
Thank you. And I think we should get to you now because, I wanted to sort of get a feel of, you were, I think, the first woman to head the crime branch, right? So, which is quite, well, I can't get my head around that. That's really impressive. I can understand why Azrai was fangirling. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you was, what did you feel about the book? What did you feel about the characters? What did you feel about the way Rudraneil has presented the case and how he's shown the investigation? What was your take?
So, like you said,
You want to try this one? Okay.
so personal apologies to all of you. I am not the one who came late. I'm really sorry about that. Like you said, you could not put it down. So when Rudhani handed over the book to me, I could not read it in one sitting, but I completed it 2 sitting. Okay. One, because I didn't have time. I had to, send my kids to the school in the morning. So night till 11 I closed, and then next day I started reading. And what I was impressed about was how his characters, his stories are so real. Now I know he has so many hours of transcript of actually talking to the police officers, so that explains it. But his, no, even the emotions are so real. Whether the victim is going through or what the police officers are going through, very raw and very real, which we actually see during where we are working on cases, different cases. What comes to my mind, or what kind of struggles my colleagues have when they go for investigations and all. And I actually told him that it is soon going to be a movie. And the story is so good. It has all the contents of a good movie also. So best but that also.
Talk about the cases and all. Why don't you share with us what is? Do you have a very memorable case which you don't mind sharing? Talking something about what stayed with you.
So from cases where doctor just got acid thrown on her his colleague so that she doesn't look as beautiful and he can marry her, to a lot of crazy stuff, I'll say. But one memorable case is actually something related to kidnapping of children, which also come across in the book. So I was a DCP West Delhi then, and one girl, young girl, 3 4 years, she got kidnapped, and we searched everywhere and did everything possible. Then after one day, she was found at the same place. So we were happy the girl has been found, that nothing wrong has happened to her. Then after a week or so, another child, same age, again got kidnapped. And you were like, we could not wrap our head around it. Why it is happening at the same place? What is happening? And such young girl, last girl was found, and nothing has happened to her. Same place she came. But this time, we worked on it. It was like till 2 days we could not find her. Third day, again, she was found at the same place. Nothing has happened to the child. Happily, she has gone home. And, of course, we sent her to her home. But we started working on it that this can't go on. That the child goes missing for 2, 3 days and then she comes back. So we started searching for CCTV cameras. We started developing Intel. And ultimately, what we found was there was a man who was not having a daughter. He'll see a child, take the girl child away, keep her at her home for 2 days, treat her very nicely, and then drop her back once she start missing. I mean, that was the crazy thing that could happen. He was not harming the child in any way, in fact, feeding her and taking care of her. So, as I said, we see a lot of crazy stuff happening, but this was something, I could not understand why is he doing it. I spoke to him personally, and he had no other explanation that I don't have a daughter. I asked him, don't you think their parents were really worried about the children and all? He said, I know, but I could not do anything about it. So a lot of things like this happen, which we prosecuted. Yes, he was arrested, sent to jail, and we had CCTV footage and everything, so he can't come out also. But there are things for police also which we are not able to explain why that's happened.
Right.
I'll tell you another case. These are not very famous cases. One boy, there was one girl. She didn't have father, and that was the main reason she got attached to a boy. That he was very fatherly and all. They were bound to get married. The bride's brother was killed, murdered. And ultimately, when we could find the reason, was that boy whom she was taking as a father. He murdered her brothers just because he wanted to delay the marriage by a couple of months so that he can have some more money and have a good marriage. So things we are not able to explain also, that how when criminality entered in your mind at what stage. So those cases still bother me somehow, that we can't really have an explanation for that. I'm very happy that you had a very happy ending in your book.
Thank you.
So, as policemen or policewomen, we also feel very happy when we have a happy ending to any case. So, thank you.
I wanted to ask you something. And this is something that is in my book because I have, as a child, I personally experienced somebody being lynched. And it is one of the most traumatic things that I've ever seen, and it has stayed with me forever, and I still, I'm still traumatized by it. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is to put my officers in situations where they have the fear of being lynched. They are in mob situations where they are being attacked, and I imagined from my own experience of what I had seen, what it would be like for the different characters. And of course, I tried to also bring in the perspective of the characters themselves. Somebody is a little bit more scared, somebody is a little bit more less scared, somebody is a little gun trigger happy, somebody is very level minded. So and plus the fear of being mobbed. If I may ask you, because you did get mobbed once and you were attacked by a whole crowd of people, what did it feel like when you were actually in that situation?
So most of the people that I've spoken to, my own subordinates or homie also, when we are in that situation, like I was, that mob was actually not on my mind. We always have a higher what should I call it? Higher aim in our minds. That day, when I got moved, we have some people inside that prison, I'll say it. I mean, it was a lockup in the court. So the thing that I had in mind was that I had to reach there so that I can save them. And whenever I've spoken to my, staff also, subordinates also, it's always something higher on their mind. That no, we have to save that child, or we have to stop this rioting. The higher goal is always there. So that helps. Of course, we are scared, but that helps us a lot. So the thing, maybe that one stone is not going to hurt us as much. The people we are going to help, maybe it is about their life, maybe will just get injured, but they may actually lose their life. So that always inspires us. And those officers who have been in such situations, it's always the same story with them.
Right.
Heroics and all, that's the secondary. Maybe that is also on mine and all. But it's always the higher goal.
Okay. I'm glad to know that I got it right, because in my mob situation, all the cops were focused on was to get that guy out of that place. So yeah, okay, thank you. This part is Inspector Kumar before the case begins, before the actual case begins. He's gone to meet a DCP who is close to at police headquarters, when police headquarters used to be at ITO. Um, DCP Ranjit Khandekar was bent over a stack of papers, signing one page after another. A man stood by the edge of the table pointing out what to sign next. Another man, obese, blue turban, sat in a visitor's chair with a smirk on his face. A young thin boy, the DCP's runner, stood at the entrance of a small recessed space in the office which had a microwave, a fridge, and crockery. Kumar stood respectfully at the door. Khandekar looked up with a grimace and motioned for him to come in. He signed a few more pages, slammed the folder shut, and handed it to the standing man. He picked up another folder, leafed through the sheets, signed where he needed to, and dropped it on the floor next to him. After going through the same sequence 4 or 5 times, he pointed at the mess of folders on the floor and said, "Joint CP's office. And tell Sarvesh 2 teas and biscuits, quick." Well, if it isn't the hero of the day, Khandekar turned to Kumar with a smile. "How are you, Prashant? You're getting fat." Kumar reflexively sucked in his stomach. "I am well, sir. How about you?" "They put me in this awful place. I sign papers all day long. My wrist will break off one day." "The bureaucracy trap," thought Kumar. "If you have the gall to do your job well, we know how to put you in your place." "How much longer?" "I have at least a year more of this hell. But tell me, what's happening with you? Bhavania was a big strike. Wonderful work." Tea was brought in. Kumar followed the boy with his eyes as he put the cups down and left the room. He stared at the closed door for a moment. "You can tell me, Prashant," Khandekar said. "An asshole gossiped to me about how you lost it during the raid." Kumar leaned forward in his chair. There was only one senior officer in the force that he trusted, right from his days as a sub-inspector posted at a district thana when Khandekar was the ACP there. "The man who was with Vijay in the car, sir, he was my informant. He gave me the location," he said in a low voice. "Is he alive?" "Yes, but paralyzed from the waist down, multiple surgeries, and here I am getting rewarded for it, for destroying the life of someone who was trying to help. Man's never going to walk again." "But he is alive," Khandekar said. He put a cube of sugar in his tea and stirred it. "That's good, isn't it? I mean, look, informers are getting killed all the time. What's so special about this one?" "He's my nephew." "Oh, now I see." "No, you don't really," Kumar thought. "His father's death was my fault too. I could not keep him away from a life of crime. You have no idea what that guilt feels like." There was a knock on the door. The lady PA peeped in, looking hassled. "Sir, those 2 constables are here." The DCP's face twisted into a furious sneer. 2 uniformed men entered the room, snapped to attention with exaggerated precision. Stretched to breaking point by his belly, a button tore off the shirt of the one whose badge said Constable Kant. It ricocheted off the edge of Khandekar's table and landed on the floor. The DCP followed the button's trajectory, as did Kant, who made a quick move to try and retrieve it before stopping in his tracks when Khandekar bellowed, "Stay where you are!" Kant snapped back to attention so hard his whole body quivered. Constable Ajay Kant was tall, overweight, balding, close to tears. He was in his late 40s but looked older. Constable Ram Kishore beside him was of average height, had a bushy mustache, dyed henna orange, pan-stained teeth, and dark liquid eyes which stared vacantly at the book-lined wall behind the DCP. "What am I going to do with you?" An uncomfortable minute passed in silence. Ramkishore said, "Sir, what happened was Sipai Kant was thirsty." "Shut up," Khandekar snapped. "I did not ask you a question." Ramkishore's face took on a deeply baffled look. Khandekar smiled with malice. His voice softened into a lilt. "But really, what happened? How did you manage to get everything stolen from your vehicle? What did you lose? The radio set? First aid box? Stretchers? Torches? The fucking logbook? All of it. We had to change our codes overnight." Kumar, who had spent most of his time staring at the table in front of him, turned in his chair to get a better look at the 2 PCR van operators. "It's a real miracle that your guns were on you. Only God could have saved you if..." "Yes, sir." Kant found the courage to interrupt Khandekar. "We are very careful with our guns, most careful. In fact, it's always..." But he is at fault, sir, Ramkishore spoke up. I had to pee. I was looking for a place. I had left the car with him. How dare you, Janab? Kant drew up to his full height to face Ramkishore. I had been telling you I was thirsty for a long time. You said you will just take a piss and you were gone for 15 minutes. Wait, what? Are you drunk right now? Khandekar barked. Were you drunk that night? Are you in fact alcoholics? No, sir, it was a Tuesday. We never drink on Tuesdays, Kant said. Nor do we eat meat, Ramkishore added. Technically, it was not Tuesday, it was 1:30 a.m., so it was Wednesday, Kant observed. On Wednesdays, I never get haircuts, Ramkishore said. Anyway, that's where I'll stop.
I love that.
It's fiction.
Slightly fictionalized.
But you know, I see that the description of Kant is so it's so stereotypical about what people think of as the Delhi constable, as the Indian constable. Actually, it's not just Delhi. It's the Indian constable is generally regarded as this pot-bellied character who is a bit of a clown. And actually, if you go out and see, it's not like that. You can see if you go down Delhi, a lot of the Delhi cops are actually they look very fit and they are very fit, I'm sure. But
Are you
I
saying
like,
they're very handsome? Because that sounds, I could hear it in your voice.
oh
Okay?
yes, some of them definitely not Kant material.
I know.
So, but anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that you built in a stereotype
Yeah.
in this. But at the same time, in the book itself, you're breaking a lot of stereotypes, which I found very interesting. And one especially, which I like, is the fact that two of your very major characters are women. You have two cops who are women, and there are other police procedurals, other detective novels which have women as cops, not just as detectives, Miss Marple type, but actually as cops. This one is interesting because there are two, and they're both, in fact, I would say that both ACP Sophia Ahmed as well as Meera are, I would say, probably even more nuanced than Prashant Kumar himself is. So I wanted to ask about this. What made you, was this deliberate, this thing of putting the women in the limelight? And of course, the way you sort of mold their characters. Their characters are very interesting because they are not stereotypical women of their particular background. For instance, Sophia Ahmed, the first thing you think of is Muslim, and most people would have a certain set notion about what a Muslim woman, even one who is educated and a cop, would be like. Similarly with Meera. She's a wrestler from rural Haryana, So you have this notion in your head that she would not be the sort of person who would, her go-to drink would be a Starbucks coffee. People have these sort of notions.
Yeah.
But the way you've chosen to depict these women especially, I found that very interesting because they're very impactful. So tell us a bit about that. How did this happen?
Okay, so firstly, being a journalist means I've met like so many people doing so many interesting things over so many years that firstly I find like stereotyping anybody, whether man or woman, is bullshit. Okay, there's the stereotypes are awful things. So Delhi police, for I think in 2012 or so, started a big drive to get women into the force. If I'm getting the year right. I did a long story back then about what women do in the force and how that's changing and how more women are coming into the force. And I met lots of very interesting women officers who were very gracious and who spoke to me at length about many things. And so it was actually a very easy decision for me to have two women cops. And I, in fact, never really thought about it so much. I was like, okay, here's like, well, maybe at the beginning I thought I should have a balance between how many men and women there are in the book. But it never felt odd to me in any way that there were two women cops. I think that was perfectly reasonable. But from my work in reporting with Delhi police, I found lots of women and all of them doing excellent work. You're talking about kidnapping, and there's a section in the book where there's a big kidnapping thing that happens. For example, that is based a lot about this constable. I think her name was Seema Dhaka. In 2020 or so, she decided to pull out about 100 kidnapping cases of children that had been left unsolved for the last 3 or 4 years, and decided just that she's going to do it all on her own, and started like calling all the numbers that were listed on those files, going to people's homes, trying to trace. And she even went to the length of, she found out that one of the girls was kidnapped by somebody, and she couldn't trace that person, but she found this person's friend, and she started to call this person's friend every day at night, pretending to be interested in a relationship with him. And she did this for I think 2 or 3 weeks till this guy said, okay, let's meet. And then when she met at the kidnapper's house and rescued the girl. So went to great lengths, went to I think months of not meeting her family, but just doing this. And at the end of the thing, I think she had rescued 76 kids in just about 6 months.
That deserves a book.
Yeah, I think
deserves a
so.
book. Wow.
So amazing. So, so that's the kind of stuff. And so there was never any doubt in my mind that some of my central characters are going to be women. And talking about stereotypes, and the wrestler Meera, who likes drinking good coffee. In fact, she likes drinking better coffee than Starbucks.
Yes.
She's a connoisseur. And this Meera is a character I love because she represents two worlds that I know very well. One is Delhi police, the other is wrestling. My previous book was a non-fiction account of wrestling, the culture of wrestling in India, which is extremely fascinating. Not the book, the culture. And I met lots of wrestlers, lots of women wrestlers. At the time when I was researching my book, women's wrestling was still little bit new, and they were still facing a lot of oppression and opposition, and all of that stuff. So Sakshi Malik, for example, this is how this coffee thing comes. Sakshi Malik, who you all know, Olympic medalist, the only women Olympic medalist from India. She comes from proper village in Haryana. Okay, when she speaks, you can hear the Haryanvi accent is very thick. She, even when she speaks Hindi, it sounds like Haryanvi. But because as an international wrestler, she's so exposed to the world. She has traveled the world. She's trained in Japan, and she's spent months and months in all these places. She's extremely worldly wise. Okay, she knows more about sushi than anybody else I know. Right? So if you want to know the best place in Delhi to have sushi, Sakshi Malik knows where you can get it. But she comes from a family that is completely vegetarian, So if you go to their homes, it's going to be tinda, dal, roti, and milk. But she knows all about sushi. So there is, stereotypes don't make any sense to me.
No, and the book is much more interesting for not having those stereotypes.
Yeah, thank you.
So one last question for you, and that is, and this is again the women in the book. So, what is your take on that? And just generally share with us a little bit, like Rudraneil shared that very interesting case about Seema Dhaka, I think her name was. Yeah. So, if you could tell us something about women in the police,
So I started my policy career in 2009, and it has been 15, 16 years now. From being the only woman in a meeting room to now, it's normal to have 2-3 women in any meeting, and more also. So we have come a long way. The women in police, they have actually come a long way. And the characters are specifically very interesting because I see those characters around me every day, having Muslim women cop or Haryana girl. We have Rajasthani also.
Yeah.
So from 2012 till now in 2025, we have covered a lot of distance, and I always credit the Nirbhaya case also for that, because there was so much hue and cry. Of course, the public was the one who kind of forced everyone to get more women in the police, and that has helped a lot. Like your character, at one place, AZP Sophia says, let me talk to him, the person in Dubai.
Yes.
So wherever we need empathy, tenderness, and it genuinely works. So women are much more effective. Seema Dhaka, one of the main reasons I feel she could succeed was because one, she has a lot of empathy. We have families, children, so that motherly instinct, because of the evolution, of course, it is there. And forget about women who respond to the women cause. Even men, they need, when you speak to them, when they need tenderness, they need empathy, then they happily speak to the women cause more than a man. So, as women, my constables or my sub inspectors, they have been so effective. They have been able to elicit so much information from the victims or from the alleged person, culprits. So it maybe, ultimately, I feel they are not even getting that much credit for that. That one point, that one breaking point that they bring to the case, to that culprit, when he is ready to speak or give you a clue, that is so, so important. And I feel they are still less in number. You need more women. If I always give a simple, Karali, that if you have 50% women in the population, why that they are not 50% cops? We still talk about only 33%. And women are as effective. It's not that every day you have to go, gun chasing somebody or so. It's more about brain, especially in the coming years. We'll have more white collar crime, maybe. China has shifted already. The physical crimes are way less compared to the kind of white collar crime that they are having now. And same thing is going to happen in India also. So gradually you'll need brains. And I'm glad to share that Delhi police has already started shifting its recruitment processes and all accordingly. And in future, I'm sure we'll be having many more. Like we have come from the only to 2, 3, soon maybe 5, 6.
I just wanted to make that point, what you made, a very interesting point about empathy, because I think that in interrogations, empathy is a very important thing. It's much more important than what you are generally used to an interrogation where people are being slapped around and just there's a lot of violence being inflicted, which maybe has some role to play. But I think if an officer can connect to the person that they're interviewing through some kind of an empathy connection, it is so much easier, and the information is so much more valid that comes from that kind of an interrogation.
Just one last question, and then we'll open up the floor to the audience. And that is, this demands a sequel. So, is there a sequel in the pipeline? Because I
Yes.
think it was there. There is.
Yes, absolutely.
And you started working on
more
it?
than more. I hopefully more than one. I
Okay,
am going
lovely.
to. It depends on the publishers whether they are ever going to be published. But I am definitely
No, no.
writing them.
I'm really glad to know that, because we need a Delhi cop.
Yes, I think so too.
Very good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So, those are all the questions I have for the two of you, but I'm sure the audience will have more questions. So, yes.
Wow, that's a very good question. Yes, I mean that's definitely a tussle. But if what you said, if something that comes up in real life that is extremely creative, and then it's a no contest. I will drop my idea and immediately take the real one, and then try to figure out ways to make that into a fictional story by, again, like I said, putting it out of context, changing the personnel around, changing some of the details. So that's very important. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of, like I said, a lot of the stuff that happens in the book is inspired by actual events that have happened, either things that I have seen myself reporting or things I have read in other people's reports. And so much of real life and actual life is completely crazy and completely weird that you don't have to really stretch your mind too much to find crazy ideas. like that guy who kept stealing people and returning them after 2 days. I mean, I don't know whether to feel sorry that he's in jail or not.
But law is clear.
Law is clear, of course, yes, no doubt.
How much of time did you take while researching vis-a-vis writing?
Uh, I think the research took more time than the writing. I mean, when I was researching, I was also working full time as a journalist with Hindustan Times and Mint, and so it was hard to do anything else except for do my 9 to 5 job. And sorry, very non 9 to 5 job, which is what journalist life is. And so yeah, so it took about 2 years of research. So while I was doing all these stories, I was constantly taking notes, constantly, like I said, recording conversations and putting it in, and sometimes I would just hear something very interesting or come across something very interesting, and I filed it away separately so that I had ready access to it later on. So it took about 2 years of that and about a year and a half to write, and then there's a very long editing process, which is oof.
See something about the Benwami energy is
Really?
how it is it's like one.
Oh no, it's nothing like my book. So when I started reading crime as a child, so one of the the heroes of all Bengali children is this detective called Felu or Feluda, and Feluda is basically Satyajit Ray's creation. Pretty much like Sherlock Holmes, a man who's extremely intelligent, who sees everything and has great powers of observation, but who otherwise lives a very quiet life as a middle class Bengali person, drinking his tea and samosa and hanging out with friends. And but he's amazing as a detective. So and those stories are brilliant and they are unputdownable. And so of course I grew up on a diet of reading Feluda and also Byomkesh Bakshi, also a very cerebral detective of the same kind of genre, which is this amateur uh, person who has a normal life but who has amazing powers of observation and deduction, like Sherlock Holmes did, and who then solves these crimes. So that was my reading, and I loved that. But it's about when I was in college or so that I first started encountering police procedurals, which has its own appeal, and now I love that so much because it's so real. It gives you a window into society and into a certain time and place and the psychology of people, and very very different from Feluda and Sherlock Holmes, but amazing in the way it depicts society, and that I think is something I enjoy so much. And for example, there's this Swedish crime writers called Matt Skjowal and Per Walu, who are known as the grandparents of Scandinavian noir. They used to write in the 60s. They were husband and wife team. Very interesting that they would basically put their children to sleep at night and take turns writing a chapter each night. So husband will write one chapter, next night wife will write the next chapter. Yeah, and so they have a series of 10 books of Inspector Martin Beck, who's part of the police in Stockholm, and and it gives you such a beautiful picture, such a detailed, vivid picture of what life must have been like in Sweden in the 60s. It's completely immersive, even though you can't, pronounce the names of the streets. It's amazing to be transported to that time and place, and that's something I actually wanted to do in my book, to be able to evoke Delhi as I have seen it.
I was curious about the process for you about writing the book. You briefly touched upon how the Swedish couple, wrote the book.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what it was like for you to live in this world and also have your mind outside your regular mind. Is there processes that you follow to keep the two separate, or would it be the crime procedures breathing into your...
Okay. Yeah, so my process is very chaotic. I hope I am going to get more disciplined about this, because again, like most of the time that I was writing this book, I was also working full time. So, but in terms of the characters were always in my head. They're in fact in my head right now. They have their own conversations. They do their own things. I know what is happening in their lives, kind of thing. So I'm very immersed in that, and that I don't know where that comes from. Is just some, I think just because I grew up reading so many books and I have a very strong imagination, maybe that's where it comes from. But I don't have to try. that the characters exist on their own and do their own things. But in terms of the process, it was very. I again learned from the couple because they have this beautiful series of interviews where they talk about their own process. And one of the things that they did before writing any book is that once they had plotted something out, they would go out to every location that they had in the book. They would drive to the location, photograph those locations, write down their observations, see, for example, how much time it took to go from A to B in their car, and have all of this research ready when they're actually writing the book. I did the same thing for my book. I actually, once I had the plot broken down, I had this little synopsis of each chapter. I went to all the places I was going to write about. I spent time there just sitting around having tea, just what it was like. I checked how much time it took. I took the metro ride that I'm going to describe in the book. And once I had all of that, that's when I actually started writing.
I have a question for you, officer. I was just wondering, could you, in your line of work, do you when they try to get inspired by or be inside a strong crime fiction or crime temperature?
Actually, we do that little bit consciously. Then maybe we'll get some, good idea from there. Over a period of 15 years that I've been working, I'll forget the first 5 years maybe, and then those 5 years will become relevant in my next 5 years. So maybe I will not be able to recollect, but I'll watch movies. In fact, our mentors or seniors, they also ask us that, have you seen that series? Oh, it's very good. Try to, see that. So we try to make time for that, of course it's not possible all the time, but we do watch crime movies. If you do watch the Netflix series or anything, it's always, we tend to learn something new, always. Despite all the number of cases that I have seen, there's always a new case, there's always a new situation, and we have to always think of the ways how we can crack this case, and what kind of things or inspiration can work on it. So at least that's what I do. And it's even this book is something that I read, and I learned a few things from this book also. Yeah.
We must have a conversation about this later. This is so embarrassing.
Can you have questions? Thank you so much, Westland, Monika, Kunzum. Thank you, and of course, all of you for coming. I feel like such a supportive and enthusiastic audience. Thank you so much. And congratulations, and all the very great.